the one thing I wanted to ask you was, when did you decide to write that? What caused you to write it?
Um, there was a spur or a burr under my seat about it because
Hmm.
there had been either an editorial or an article in the New York Times that said that New York had not ever had a repertory company on Broadway or something like that. It
Hmm.
wasn't exactly right, but the inference was Ellis Rabb and Rosemary Harrison, APA Phoenix, and the little company that birthed me has gone. And
Hmm.
at the time, at the time in 1968, 69, 70, when it fell apart, and I was just starting out.
Yeah.
That was my day. 69 was my debut year.
Yeah.
That was the last official year of APA,
Hmm.
and it had been going for 10 years. But by that time, Ellis Rabb had delivered a company playing repertory that had a place in the Lyceum Theater in New York City, the James Doolittle Theater in Los Angeles, the Lydia Mendelson Theater at Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the University of Michigan, and the Toronto, the King, no, more beautiful theater up there. Anyway,
Hmm.
we had a full year
Yeah.
of engagements across the country and frankly into Canada.
Yeah.
And no, it wasn't like it wasn't the most important thing that ever happened. But somebody like Steve Sondheim said to me when he saw Ellis's production of Pantaglass, it kind of changed his life. He'd never
Yeah.
seen anything like it in his life.
Yeah.
Helen Hayes, the old sort of first lady of the American theater, was in that company. Eva Le Gallienne, who had the Civic Theater in the 30s, she was in that company. I mean, we had this, it was an astonishing thing. And
Yeah.
suddenly the Times is blowing out of saying there never was anything like that.
Yeah. You felt sort of a responsibility to make sure you, wait a second, there was something like that.
I felt, I felt, I know that Rosemary Harris was really angry, and I think she wrote a letter to the Times.
Right.
But I thought to myself, how does this happen that these people who are cultural influences and are riding the rails, are deeply committed to something, just go? And because theater is really all about making memory, not
Hmm.
much else, because it doesn't exist after it goes. It
Yeah.
either stays
Yeah.
in there or it doesn't.
Yeah.
But it sort of broke my heart that this remarkable group of people, and it wasn't just them. I mean, it was Nancy Marchand and Keith Curtis and Will Geer and extraordinary people were in and out of that company. Brian Bedford was in it for a while. And these are names that don't mean anything to you. I know.
No, but it's no,
I
no, but
see the
no, no, no,
expression
no, no, no.
on
That's
your
not why.
face.
That's not why I'm making that face. I'm making that face because I told you, man. When we come to these episodes every day, right? I always have I forgot how you phrased it earlier. A crawl in my shoe or under my seat or whatever.
A burr under your
a
saddle.
spur, a burr. Yeah, yeah. I was way off. But man, I kept thinking about. I wanted to know why you wrote that book because I think maybe I told you, maybe I didn't. I'm sure I've told you before. I have a manuscript for a novel that I wrote probably 10 years ago.
No,
Have we never
told
talked
me.
about this?
No.
Yeah, I wrote a fiction book that was sort of inspired by my time in the modeling industry. And it's funny, man, every time I think about it, every time, because what happened was I wrote it. We didn't really go to many publishers. It went to like one, or we were trying to find an agent, not publishers. So we went to like an agent or something, and it was right around the time Safe Space was bought. So when Safe Space was bought, I basically said, okay, let's cool it on the book. And what I did was I set it up. It was called Mannequin Life. What I did was I set it up as a TV show at ABC Signature, and I was going to develop it there and then self-publish the book. Like I maintained the rights, and I was going to sell the book myself if a TV show was made about it. Well, long story, not to kill the elephant in the room, but the TV show wasn't made. I got the rights to the book back. Anyway, I've been thinking a lot about it. But the reason I bring that up is because I wrote it in a lot of ways. Every time I think about it, it's a way of validating that experience that was so formidable in my life. Do you know what I mean? And it's so in some ways when I hear you talk about APA, it's like, man, like how can you say this didn't exist? This is what made me. These people, these experiences, this sort of cocoon is what birthed me. I don't know. It's just kind of neat that you would, because I was wondering that.
The other thing that you're sort of igniting here is these things that we do because we're fervent about them.
Mm,
You write this novel. I mean, several years ago, Ethan Hawke and Jonathan Mark Sherman and I were trying to adapt The Cherry Orchard
yeah, I
for
remember.
film. I think you read it.
You mentioned it. Yeah, yeah,
And we all decided to write a scene to see what would happen, and I won. Mine was better than theirs, and
Yeah.
they said right away, "You write it. Go ahead." I'd never
Yeah.
written a screenplay.
right.
I wrote the screenplay. The screenplay's really good.
Yeah,
They were going to give it. Ethan had a contact with
Linkletter, I think.
no.
Oh.
Yeah, no. The actress,
Oh yeah, yeah. I can't remember the name, but I
yes,
know
you
what you're
can
saying.
help
Okay,
me
let
to
me.
it. Kate Blanchett.
Right, right.
Jeremiah is in the corner holding a lot of the cards. It's Kate Blanchett,
Yeah.
and she and her husband are theater monsters,
Yeah.
and they had their own company, and she still is on stage a lot,
Yeah.
and they wanted to do this,
Hmm.
and I can't remember if she read it or not. I think they got it to her. I don't know if she read it because then something else came up, and so it's gone. It's just gone, and yet, as Ethan said to me, sometimes 10 years go by and somebody picks up this script and says, well, let's do this one. I mean, they're like little chestnuts in the ground or something that occasionally they turn up. And so it doesn't matter. It does. But it doesn't matter that it happens when you want it to happen, that you put life into it so that conceivably down the line, it'll ignite again. How do
Yeah.
we know?
Yeah.
Maybe your novel is really good.
Yeah, it's actually not bad. But I mean, I can say that I didn't know what I was doing, but there's a lot of stuff in it that the reason I bring that up is because I've been thinking about going back and rewriting it, about doing something that I have complete control over, even more so than if you're a director in film, right? And also, there's a part of me that feels like that chapter of my life. I'm not saying I necessarily want it to be a TV show or a movie or anything, but there's something about that chapter that feels sort of not even unprocessed, but like almost like what you said with APA, unrecognized, even in my own mind, right? And so I say that to say that I've actually been going back and forth of, okay, well, let's say, I'm finishing up another screenplay now. I'm like, all right, well, what if, I took a little break and tried to rewrite this novel in a month or something to see what happened, right?
You should do it.
Well, you say that, but what keeps coming up is, man, I don't want to go there again. And I may not, because I was thinking about this morning, we were going to talk. I was thinking about, man, the process of writing for me is so exhausting.
Mm.
And I don't know if like that part of my life, I don't know if I really want to go back to it, because it is like, it's a very strange world, and it's a very strange industry, and it's a very misunderstood industry. And so a lot of the currency that I had in writing that book was, and I don't mean exposing as in bad guys and good guys. I mean giving people a little peek behind the curtain of what it's like being a guy in the world of fashion 10 to 15 years ago, because it's not like that as much anymore. However, there's still a lot of it.
Some of it is.
Well, and it was way more interesting 15 years ago because there were more models and less influencers and things like that. It's like there was a real industry where people would trot around the world doing these things. It's not like that as much anymore,
I think that's probably true.
But anyways, I just, it's so interesting you would say that about APA, because I felt that way so much, of wanting to validate the guys that I knew when I was in that world, because they're all gone from New York, basically.
Okay, that's part of what we're talking about. I mean,
Yeah.
The first book was to say there's no record of this.
Yeah.
And very clearly, because I was the witness,
Yeah.
they produced me, they made me up out of whole cloth. And you know who else did? Dan Sullivan, the director Dan Sullivan, who's my age, had a parallel situation with Lincoln Center
Hmm.
and Herbert Blau and Jules Irving coming from San Francisco into taking over Lincoln Center and APA. That was at the same time. And he and I have had sort of parallel careers. We were
Hmm.
both associates. We were both assistants. We both, we sort of came into focus at the same time. I'm so fond of him, and when I ran the Globe, I had him come and direct for me. We've been very good friends all these years.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying basically is that I felt a need. I thought if I don't tell the story, whether the story gets told or not, I'm the only one who ever will do it.
Yeah.
And when Jonathan Mark Sherman and Ethan Hawke and I thought we should do this adaptation of Cherry Orchard, and I grabbed a hold of it, there's something about that says it's your material, it's your turf to turn over.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't think we have the right or even know whether it's of value or not, and maybe we shouldn't. If it sparks something in you enough to make the effort, I mean, you'd have to be pushed over the inertia that is saying, "Do I really want to go back there?"
Yeah.
Now when I did the last book, I could put my hands on this key and just type. I can't do that anymore. Arthritis and age. Now I have to talk it. I have to dictate it and then go back and correct it because I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, the flow of language is part of the cherry red rubber that drives my mill, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
This is really what this is about.
Well, and as someone that's read the book, I'll say too that, a lot of people, if they told me that, I'd say, well, now you get to do a podcast. So that's like writing. But for you, it's not, because you have such a voice as a writer, and it's like you on steroids when if you and I speak for half an hour, you get a couple minutes of your flourishes, whereas the book is you flourishing the whole time in the best way possible. And so that's why the read is so fun.
Yeah, I don't want to sort of say the book was a big fart or anything, because a day doesn't go by that somebody doesn't say, I read your book and I loved it.